This is Peter York.
And this is Michael Pierce.
And you're watching Seattle Wireless TV.
Hi, welcome to the next episode of Seattle Wireless TV for October 2003. In this month's episode, we have a segment from Paul on how to make a biquad antenna.
We have an interview from the founder of Seattle Wireless named Matt Westervelt.
We also have some footage from the Seattle Wireless Field Day.
Hi, my name is Eric Hall, and today I'm going to show you how to make a ghetto biquad antenna. The tools and supplies needed are 1/4-inch copper tubing, sheet metal, 12-gauge wire, Romex works well, RG58 or the liking, tube cutters, wire cutters, tin snips, drill bits, a drill, and a Dremel tool. Cut 244 millimeters or 24.4 centimeters of wire. Measure and mark 122 millimeters of wire. That is a full wavelength of 2.4 gigahertz. Once you have your 244 millimeter length piece of copper wire, you'll want to bend it in half at 122 millimeters. Bend the mark 90 degrees to make an L shape. Measure and mark 30.5 millimeters of each 61 millimeter length. This is a quarter wavelength of 2.4 gigahertz. Bend the marks 90 degrees to form an M shape. Bend each 30.5 millimeter mark 90 degrees evenly, making a square. Now you should have two squares which are each 30.5 millimeters per side. Each square is a wavelength of 2.4 gigahertz. Now we will cut a sheet of metal to create the ground plane for the biquad element. Measure, mark, and cut 110 millimeters by 170 millimeters out of the sheet metal. The reason for marking the 60 millimeters extra is to make 30 millimeter sides. Measure and mark 30 millimeters from the edge of the long side. Repeat the process on the other side. Measure from the inside mark to the other inside mark on the adjacent side to find the center of the 110 millimeter section. Take 3 pieces of wood that have a straight edge and place 2 of them in a vise at an equal height. Clamp the sheet metal between the 2 pieces at the 110 millimeter mark. Take the third piece of wood and use it to bend the sheet metal 90 degrees. If wood is not available, use the vise carefully to bend the sheet metal 90 degrees. You want to create a seamless bend. Drill a hole at the center point. I recommend using a 15th 64th size drill bit for the hole. Cut 16 millimeters of 1/4 inch copper tubing. Bore out the inside of the copper tubing to allow the RG58 shield and dielectric to fit inside. 4 holes will need to be drilled as close to the top of the copper tubing as possible. This allows the biquad element to mount to the copper tubing. Each hole will be drilled 90 degrees apart. I recommend using a 5/64th size drill bit to drill the holes out in the tubing. After drilling, there will be quite a bit of shavings and whatnot on the inside of the tubing. Bore out the tubing to remove the shavings. Use a Dremel to cut the top of the copper tubing in half and cut 3 millimeters down from the top. Cut the tubing between 2 of the holes, which is about 45 degrees between each hole. You may need to cut out more than half to make enough clearance for the biquad element. Make a cut 3 millimeters down from the top, meeting the vertical cut that was just made. Now you should have 2 holes 90 degrees apart. Try to fit the wire end of the element into the holes. Apply solder flux to the joint between the tubing and the wire. This cleans the area that will be soldered and allows for a stronger bond. Take your blowtorch or soldering iron and heat the joint between the tube and the wire. Apply the smallest amount of solder possible. Solder is a terrible conductor, so the less you have, the better off you are. Heat the tubing and the sheet metal with the blowtorch. Now you should have a cleanly soldered element and tubing. The element should have a millimeter or 2 of clearance. Finesse your element if necessary. Measure and mark 16 millimeters of the wire. Cut the sheath, but leave the shielding intact. Take a soldering iron and heat the shielding and the wire and apply an equal coat of solder around the exposed shield. This piece of the shield will go inside the copper tubing and be reheated to attach the wire to the tube. Feed the soldered RG58 into the tubing. This might take a little finessing. You need to have a thin amount of solder on the shielding. If you have too much, try to reheat it and smooth it out. Align the shielding of the RG58 to meet the end of the 1/4 inch tubing at the top. Then solder the center pin of the RG58 to the bend of the biquad element. Heat the 1/4 inch tubing to allow the solder on the RG58 shielding to bond to the inside of the tubing. This allows for a really strong bond that won't allow the wire to come loose. Straighten the element as needed. And there it is, the biquad. Attach your favorite RF connector to the end of the RG58.
Hi, sorry to interrupt the show, but this is the part where we have to do a little business. Putting a show like this together takes a lot of work and a lot of resources. What we really need to do is we need to get more content from people out in the field, and we need to get some money. Mike, you want to talk about the money real quick?
Pretty much, yeah. What you can do is we have a PayPal link on our site, so if you know, any amount really helps. It's a lot of work to put this show together, and we need a lot of help. So if you just want to, donate $1, $5, whatever, you can just go to our site and hit donate.
Excellent. Hey, all right, now we're going back to the show. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy.
So we're here with Matt Westervelt from Seattle Wireless. Matt, tell us a little bit about what is Seattle Wireless all about?
Seattle Wireless is a project to build a metropolitan area network in the city of Seattle. We're using 802.11b hardware, also known as Wi-Fi, to create a local loop infrastructure that is actually free of any recurrent cost.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about how many nodes do we have going in the city? How do people connect to it? what's the whole structure look like?
Currently, there are 5 connected nodes that are using straight wireless. There are also several other nodes, probably about 2 dozen, that are connected through an internet tunnel network. We're using the internet as infrastructure as well as the wireless. Obviously, when you're using internet as infrastructure, it's not free of recurrent cost. So we're trying to avoid that sort of thing as much as possible. But we've run into line of sight issues with the current membership.
So tell me a little bit about what's different about Seattle Wireless versus some of the other community wireless organizations like NYC Wireless or Personal Telco.
Most of the community wireless organizations out there are interested in getting people onto the internet. The problem with, the issue with getting people connected to the internet, obviously, is that you have to provide internet access. Internet access is not something that you can actually just get for free. So there's always a cost that's borne on the node owner. The Seattle Wireless Network has no internet requirement. Since our goal is to connect the computers within the city, you don't actually need internet access. It's an amenity that people can provide or not provide, depending on what their level of involvement is. When you're creating a routed infrastructure throughout the city, we're using all of our own gear to connect to somebody else with all of their own gear. So there's no recurrent cost in that peer-to-peer exchange of information.
That kind of opens another question then. So if you're not primarily providing internet access, what other kind of content are you putting out on this network?
Currently we have things like chat servers and wikis, and we do have some music, like streaming music stations. We have a copy of, Rob Flickinger is putting up a copy of the Prelinger archive and a copy of the Gutenberg archive, which are all public domain works. We're also, putting up user-generated content. So, like you can put up a webcam and you can, it's a lot like the early days of the internet when people were like, wow, what can I do with this sort of thing? Oh, I know, I've got a video camera and I'll hook up a webcam so that way I can see what the weather's like on Capitol Hill, or I can see what the weather's like in Queen Anne.
Right.
Or on top of Mount Baldy, things like that.
Got it. All right. So where do you see the stuff going the next couple of years?
The next couple of years, I expect that we'll get more nodes. We've been doing, I would say, all right in the infrastructure build out. We currently have 5 nodes. We had 5 nodes a while ago, but then some people moved, and then then we got 5 nodes again. So one of the problems with building out infrastructure in a peer-to-peer sort of method is that people do move and people are mobile. So as we get more people to join the network gets more robust. When somebody moves, if they have if there's 2 upstream connections, then obviously you won't have a problem. Also, I would see that in the future, you're just going to see different applications. I mean, most of what this is sort of an experimental play space, so we can try out new and interesting things. One of them, we'll show you soon.
Okay, and then finally, what other cities are you guys reaching out to? I mean, Seattle's a big area. Are you guys reaching out to places like Tacoma or Eastern Washington at all?
No, not at all. No, actually, yeah, we are reaching out to Tacoma. We have some people down in Tacoma. We have some people up in Everett that have Seattle Wireless nodes in their respective cities, which is it's kind of interesting. But it's not just Seattle. I mean, originally it seemed like it would just be Capitol Hill, and then people in North Seattle wanted to be involved, and people in Wallingford wanted to be involved. So it's grown, and then we're actually reaching outside of the bounds of the city, and we're going into Tacoma, into Bellevue, into Kirkland, things like that. So people are interested. People are putting up nodes. One of the problems with that, of course, is that we don't necessarily have line of sight to them, so we have to use the internet tunnels.
Well, thank you very much. That's great.
On August 30th, 2003, Seattle Wireless had their first wireless field day. Modeled after the amateur radio field days, event organizers Casey Halverson and Peter York decided to have this year's event at Alki Beach and Magnolia Park in Seattle. The network was created from off-the-shelf wireless components. Links were from Magnolia Park to Alki Beach and then to the Columbia Tower in downtown Seattle for internet access. Demonstrations of voice over IP, internet relay chat, and stream media applications were shown. And how's field day going for you?
Yeah.
Going fine. We're trying to get. We have a link finally going over to Alki, and we have internet access.
Right on. So what have you been doing with it?
We're trying to get everyone into the IRC server so we can coordinate new things without having to try to use those FRS radios.
Right on. All right. So this is a poor man's FRS radio?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Gasoline-powered generators were used to provide electrical power to both sites. Meanwhile, over at Alki Beach,
Yeah, that was a really... What trouble with my shade is...
So how's your field day going?
It's going.
Yeah, who you talking on the phone?
Ken,
Ken who?
Caruso,
Oh, tell him we said hi from Magnolia.
the camera says hi from Magnolia.
So Casey, how did it feel to get a wireless network put together on shoestring and baling wire and chewing gum?
Oh, well, we kind of worked at it, and we're linked to Alki Beach, which is then linked to Columbia Tower, which is then linked to CNET, so we can get out to the internet, so I can check my email.
Right on.
And start writing to the mailing list again. But I'm pretty amazed that we pulled it together off of a bunch of just random hardware that wasn't really configured to begin with, and I don't know, it's going good.
Right on.
Oh wait. Via the Ethernet, it's 10.
Like
So Mike, how's field day going?
Wait, I'm confused. Are you in wireless too? Channel wireless?
Hey Mike.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man? How's field day?
Field day is great.
Are you having fun?
Oh, unbelievable.
Dude, right on.
Via the Ethernet, it's 10.
Oh, check it out. There's a plane circling. What? Oh, right here.
no external antenna.
Yeah.
Hey, so Eric, how was Seattle Wireless Field Day for you today?
2 thumbs up, my friend.
Right on. So what did you guys do?
Well, my friend Brian over here to my right.
Is he camera shy?
He is a bit camera shy,
Okay.
but he's the one who's actually sharing the network connection for most of the folks here. I have a little small biquad antenna. If you check out Seattle Wireless page index called biquad, you'll see directions on how to make one. We have a connection going to Alki, which is then going through a Windows machine, which is sharing out to a ingenious router, which is then sharing it wirelessly to about 10 other computers around the area here, and we're all having a great time.
Right on. Thanks.
Thank you.
The 2003 Seattle Wireless Field Day turned out to be a big success. We're looking forward to an even bigger event next year.
Well, that's this month's show. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. See you next month.